What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, putting America first, second, and third. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And welcome to our show today. It is Wednesday, November 4th, 2020, the day after the election. And boy, it is still a firestorm out there. Everybody's screaming and yelling and all kinds of stuff. We don't have a final decision, I guess is a good word to use, on the presidential race here. And there's just a lot going on that is of dubious quality, shall we say. About the only good thing that's we can report right now is that all those pollsters and pundits who were predicting a landslide for Joe Biden were proven wrong. It is neck and neck. It's a nail biter down to the end. And I think my earlier prognostication that this could turn into a repeat of 2000 is definitely very much on track. And it's going to get really ugly. And of course, you know, getting back to these pollsters who were telling us Biden was going to win in a landslide, those were the same pollsters who were telling you that lockdowns were going to be, popular, which, of course, was wrong. Now, the pollsters got it wrong in 2016. They got it wrong by a massive margin. This time they weren't quite as far out there, but they still got it wrong. And as a matter of fact, there was a comment made on Fox News earlier today saying at this point, you know, polls and what they call voter analytics don't seem to really say much of anything anymore. And why does anybody pay attention here? Now, over at CNN, Jake Tapper, on his election night coverage, Democrats thought Biden would win in a landslide, were, quote, getting high on their supply. By only listening to those pundits that dislike President Donald Trump. It was confirmation bias here. And, you know, Biden is ahead in the Electoral College and the popular vote, but not by much. It's neck and neck out there. Now, down in Florida, a top Democrat there is saying what cost them Florida, because Trump took Florida. He said it was the defund the police idea that really did not go over well with voters, and they got surprised by the Hispanic vote that was going very much for Donald Trump. So they misjudged that one quite a bit. Now, here's a little bit of good news. Apparently, rising Republican star Madison Cawthorn has defeated Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for that House seat. And I think that's a little bit of good news for all of us who are a little sick and tired of her Green New Deal rhetoric and the rest of that's going on here. Anyway, as I said, Wisconsin just got awarded to Joe Biden, and it was a razor-thin margin, less than 1%, something like 30,000 votes. And the Trump campaign is requesting a recount based on multiple reports of, quote, irregularities, end quote. Now, I don't know why they use that word, because we know what's going on here. I mean, Joe Biden openly boasted of the most extensive voter fraud organization in history, and it looks like he was actually telling us the truth for once. All righty. Now, here's what's going on. Apparently, there are 10 Pennsylvania counties so far have 0 precincts reporting. And basically, these were 10 counties that Donald Trump won back in 2016. And in fact, we're beginning to see a pattern where certain areas are withholding their vote totals while they wait and see what happens in the rest of the state. And obviously, that would indicate that if there's going to be any nefarious behavior, that's where it's going to be taking place here. What really makes Pennsylvania very, very dangerous for Donald Trump is the state Supreme Court ruled that election officials could count ballots with no or illegible postmarks. In other words, no guarantee that they were mailed by midnight last night, which means somebody could just walk in with a batch of ballots here with a smudge where the postmark goes, or no postmark at all, and it's still going to be counted. And I think this one is probably going to go all the way to the Supreme Court to decide that one here. Now, down in Georgia, Their presidential election results are potentially delayed until Friday because a pipe broke in the room containing the mail-in ballots. And this was in Fulton County, the largest county, which includes the state's capital of Atlanta. I think Georgia has 18 electoral votes that are up for grab here, but apparently there's been that problem down there. Now, Nevada is not going to resume counting their ballots until tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And they're not really giving a reason. But I think, again, they're trying to figure out how much things need to be rigged to put their boy over the top there. Now, 14,000 votes in South Carolina might not be counted until Friday, and they're saying it's basically because of a printing error and the slowness of the mail-in. I mean, there's problems just all over the place. I mean, a few days ago, Project Veritas put out a call for people to provide tips of voting irregularity or vote rigging, things like that. And so far, they've received over 1,000 such tips, and they're trying to get camera crews out there and get the stuff on video and see what's going on. Down in Louisiana, voters have approved an amendment saying there is no constitutional right to abortion. Over in Colorado, they voted to strike down a measure prohibiting abortions after 22 weeks. And over in Oregon, they have passed a measure that legalizes hard drugs like heroin and LSD, which of course you will pay copious amounts of taxes on. So there's a liberal bastion there for you. You're allowed to do whatever you want as long as you pay the government for the privilege here. And apparently, the independent BitChute video streaming platform was shut down by its hosting service on Election Day. And going over to BitChute, you got an error 525 message. They were restored later on, but again, it appears that they were being interfered with, which is kind of strange because BitChute advertises itself as avoiding the types of corporate web hosting platforms that engage in censorship. So it looks like somebody got in on them as well. Getting on back to CNN, Van Jones is condemning Trump voters and says the fact that the election is this close hurts. But he doesn't bother to mention the fact Biden just didn't bring the enthusiasm in. He didn't win over the voters. And again, going back to the rallies, Trump is pulling in 30,000 and Biden was pulling in maybe a couple of hundred, even less. There was that one where there was 20 people, including the news crews. And you look at that and then you look at the results from the vote counters and you realize something is way, way out of kilter. Now, up in Michigan, they have more than 77,000 spoiled ballots. And this was reported by CNN. But Tracy Wimmer, a spokesman for the Secretary of State's office, says you need a little bit of context. The ballots were spoiled because of printing errors. And apparently they're making the claim that voters intentionally spoiled them so they could fill out their absentee ballots again, which seems like a bit of a stretch. But they're insisting that all ballots will be counted and that the irregularities will not change the outcome one little tiny bit. Okay, it gets a little bit more intense because this mail processing facility that serves 15 states has lost 300,000 ballots. And U.S. District Judge Emmett Sullivan of the District of Columbia gave the mail agency until 3:30 p.m. To do a sweep of all postal districts and find those missing 300,000 ballots. But the post office disregarded the court order and said they will rely on their own schedule of inspections somewhere down the road after next Shrove Tuesday, one presumes. The FBI has launched an investigation into who made these robocalls targeting voters in North Carolina, Nebraska, and Michigan, telling them to stay home and vote today to avoid the long lines. Obviously, the polls are closed today. It's just another way of voter suppression. So this is the crookedest election in American history. It really, really is. And it almost doesn't matter who wins or loses. It almost doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. When you see an election that is this obviously being manipulated, it sends a message that you, the American people, are now cut out from the process of government. You no longer have a voice. They just go through this theater every so many years to make you feel good about what's being done to you by the government. Well, yes, we're coming over and we're taking more money from you, but hey, you voted for this. You know, look at the results of the last election. This is what you wanted. So from where I sit, when the elections are this crooked, then we are dealing with a situation of taxation without representation. And I remember when I was growing up in grade school, we were told that that was a really good reason to start a revolution against the Great Britain. Apparently over in Philadelphia, and it's going to come down to Pennsylvania. There's going to be, you know, fisticuffs over Pennsylvania. And this was, you know, the state attorney general is out there saying Trump will lose. Didn't say, I think Trump will lose. He just said Trump will lose in Pennsylvania with flat declaration. And a Republican poll watcher in Philadelphia was denied entry to a polling location despite having the proper credentials to be a valid poll watcher. And there was a video made of this. It was posted by attorney Will Chamberlain, no relation to the basketball player. It gained over 700,000 views in less than 2 hours. Poll watcher Gary Feldman is attempting to enter a polling station. He's turned away by workers who claim his certificate isn't valid for this location. Well, it was valid for all locations, is what happened. And they just refused to let him in. Feldman said, I have a citywide watcher certificate, and a poll worker said, that's not for this location. So obviously something was going on there. Like I said, it is very, very obvious. All righty. Getting into other areas of politics, Nancy Pelosi is once again on the warpath against Amy Coney Barrett, calling her an illegitimate Supreme Court justice, which is provoking outrage from the rest of the Supreme Court, and certainly from conservatives. And she's back on this idea that the president is not allowed to put a justice on the Supreme Court just before the election. Well, yeah, read your Constitution, Nancy. That is what the president is allowed to do. And the Senate advises and consents, and that's what they did. So, anyway. Getting on to COVID-19, which is still out there, and although I have a feeling now that the election is pretty much over, it's going to start fading away here. But apparently Theresa May is in high dudgeon against Boris Johnson, claiming that he's using the wrong projection of 4,000 deaths a day to make his case for a new set of lockdowns and restrictions. And of course, this has triggered all kinds of protests in the streets of London, other cities in Great Britain as well. People are tired of the lockdowns. They're tired of the masks. We're starting to find out from people who are sort of outside that medical industrial complex, the masks aren't working. Even CDC said that. And social distancing really isn't having that much of an effect. Remember when they were all out there saying that, you know, you were going to catch it if you flew on an airplane with a COVID-19 passenger, and they did tests on it and discovered that the aircraft filtering system for the air, actually the air in a jetliner is safer than in your home. So that's what's going on there. Up in Canada, Justin Trudeau is warning there may not be a Christmas because of COVID-19. He's out there to Grinch the holiday. And a lot of people are already thinking along those lines. I've got family members who've already canceled Thanksgiving, which is going to make the turkeys happy. But Trudeau is up there saying that, you know, unless Canadians are really, really careful, Canadians will not be able to celebrate Christmas with family and friends. All right. Now, here's another article, and it sort of reminds us how little we really know about what's going on. This came out of the Economic Times here. And they're basically raising a new concern over the standard coronavirus test here in the United States of America, saying that it has a very high rate of false positives. They're using that PCR test, which is never intended to be a diagnostic tool, by the way. And they're saying the new data is saying that people should be moving to the use of rapid tests to try and get a handle on what's going on. Another article, this one from Natural News. The coronavirus pandemic has drastically changed how people go about their daily lives. You already know that, of course, here. Between working remotely and being confined indoors, families are spending more time with each other than they normally would, and it's getting on their nerves. And there is an increase in anger and confrontation. Divorce rates are up. The divorce lawyers are having a field day out there. And yeah, it's like being in jail. People are a little bit upset here. Okay, now John Lewis, because of COVID, is going to fire 1,500 head office staff as a cost-cutting drive to save £300 million. Lloyd's of London is set to lay off 1,070 employees for the same reason. Business is just slowing down. And if we have more lockdowns for the so-called second wave, it's only going to get worse. Now, they had a great day on the stock market. Had a real post-election rebound. The Dow closed 367 up. Over in South Sudan, the authorities are reporting a new outbreak of polio linked to the vaccinations for polio. This is the second time that this has happened. They call it vaccine-derived polio cases. They've had another set of 15 coming on out there. And it's another reminder that vaccines can actually cause the illnesses they're supposed to protect you from. Turning to the international news here, things over in Europe and the Middle East have just been intensifying ever since that horrific beheading of the French teacher here. And up in Sweden, they want to close down what they describe as terror-supporting mosques. Well, how do you tell the difference between a terror-supporting mosque and a non-terror-supporting mosque? I don't think they put a sign out front saying terrorists not welcome here. We refuse service, to suicide bombers and so forth and so on. So apparently with this wave of Islamic terrorism all across Europe, Sweden is basically saying they've got to throttle the grant money, close the mosques, and that Swedish citizenship of those involved be revoked. Now, Iran, which despite all the pressures it's under, maintains a sense of humor, is now describing the United States as the Pirates of the Caribbean for selling the fuel seized from those tankers for a total of $40 million. They were the 4 Iranian tankers heading for Venezuela. The U.S. Navy basically stole the oil, is what they did. Iran is right. This is an act of piracy on the high seas. Yo ho, yo ho. Where's my pirate's hat? There we go. There we are. And I work for the U.S. government. So. All righty. So let's see. We're coming up now on a commercial break here. I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines a little bit early because I have a feeling a lot of callers want to get a lot of stuff off their chest. So the phone number is area code 512-248-8252. And we're coming up here on a commercial break. When we come on back, more news and phone calls. So we'll be back after these few words. Stay tuned. Welcome back to our show here, and again, a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network needs you and needs your help to keep doing what we're doing. And even though it looks like the big money power may be victorious on this election, there is still plenty more that we need to be doing afterwards to try and oppose the stuff that's happening around us. So once again, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number for a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you, and I thank you. And some of you have been very, very generous, and we do appreciate that. All right, we're going to start taking phone calls now, starting with Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for taking the call. I came in a little late. I just wanted to get your initial thoughts on the crime of the century, what's going on right now, this
Yes.
theft.
Yes.
And then I just had a statement. I was listening to Steve Bannon, and he's very upset with Trump and Trump's people. He felt that Trump should have actually come out last night around 10:45, 11 o'clock, and just basically declared victory. Because
Yes, he should have.
Even Fox News, and these polling desks, they should have called these states much earlier for Trump. Particularly Michigan, I think or Pennsylvania, he was up by 800,000 votes. So I don't know if I can just pin the blame on Trump, or I think Trump is he has just bad people around him, very bad people. He doesn't have these Democrats. Seems like the consultants, these guys are real professionals, and they're relentless. The people the Republicans, they're amateurs when it comes to elections. So. Just wanted to get your initial thoughts, though. I mean, on what's going on.
Well, again, in my opinion, this is the crookedest election in U.S. history. It's no question it's being rigged. And I, too, lay the blame on Donald Trump, not so much for his not coming out last night and declaring victory, which would have given him a psychological edge, but because he had, 3+ years to start to deal with the process. And I know the state election commissions and everything were opposed to that and everything, but there have to be means for a president to reinforce the rule of law, because if the American people understand that the elections are that easy to rig, then again, we're back in taxation without representation. The people will feel they don't have a voice, and I think this is going to drive up the anger in the general population. The idea that the government has gone rogue, that it is pulling a giant magic trick on us to make it look like we've actually got some say in the government when we don't.
I mean, Trump, to his credit, He basically predicted this was going to happen months ago when this whole subject of the mail-in ballots was at the center of the news. He basically, what they were doing, it was just so obvious. They were waiting to see what was coming in from the red parts of the state.
Yes,
they were checking on Trump's lead, and then the counting stopped. Okay, now they knew. Okay, how many votes do we need to make up to overcome this Trump lead? So. This is just a scandal, and I tell people, if this actually happens and Biden takes office, should I, am I responsible to pay taxes to a government like this? That's in my eyes illegitimate.
Again, taxation without representation. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I agree. But all right, Mike, thank you so much.
All right, thanks an awful lot here, and I'm going to do another story because we got callers waiting on the line, but we're really close to a commercial break here. I got an email from somebody was watching Crowder, and there were supposedly reports of voters being given Sharpies for their ballots, and the machines are not able to read them. This was in Nevada or Arizona, possibly others as well. And apparently, D.C. activists are getting ready for post-election day possible violence. I know that Black Lives Matter and Antifa clashed with the police in front of the White House, and the non-scalable fence unfortunately turned out to be scalable. Okay, so we've got another minute here. I'm going to get a fast story in here. I want to do something other than politics here. And as a matter of fact, I'm so tired of politics. I've been watching movies all day. I was watching Aliens and Cowboys just prior to showtime. It's one of the worst movies ever made, but it's still better than what we're seeing on the corporate news channels with all the political bias. Anyway, I have spoken before of the Raspberry Pi series of computers that start at just, $35. It's a cheap PC on a card that can be used for all kinds of creative projects, and some of them are pretty amazing. And the Raspberry Pi 4 is very, very powerful, and they have actually packaged it inside a PC keyboard. So you get the entire computer PC in a keyboard for $70. I mean, this is absolutely amazing. This is going to completely remake the computer landscape. Won't run Windows or Mac OS, of course. It is strictly a Linux machine. Anyway, so we're going to take another break for commercials and back with phone calls after these two words. And welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones now to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Oh, Mike, I got a lot on my mind today. I hope you can accommodate all the venom I'm about to expel here.
Oh, we got plenty of time in this segment.
Well, let me start out by saying that I want people to envision. I believe Trump's going to lose this. I think in reality, this was probably a landslide for him. But
yes,
he's going to lose this because of the intervention from a whole myriad of sources I'm about to chronicle. But I want to start out by saying that when I was in the 80s, when you still lived in L.A., Mike, California was a red state. And there were many red states back then, but the Democratic Party weaponized illegal immigration and would channel them into Republican. Within 10 years or so, California went from solidly Reagan, Duke-Majan, Pete Wilson sort of Republican to absolutely blue and will never, ever be red again. That's 54 electoral votes just to start out.
Yes.
They did that in other places too. Arizona was solidly red. Texas was solidly red. They're still mild. They're still pink, but they used to be solidly red. A whole bunch of other places. But so let's start with that. And then, of course, they changed the election laws in places like California, where you're not allowed. There's flooded with millions of illegals, and you're not allowed to ask anybody for identification. All right, that's the first thing. The second thing is we have, of course, the secret police, the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, the NSA, bugged Trump, bugged Bernie Sanders, bugged all these people, and intervened directly under Obama's orders in the 2016 election, and then they intervened directly to subvert his presidency with the phony, ginned-up Russiagate stuff, in which the media was completely complicit and in partnership with the secret police. So now we have, I want people to think about what this election would have been like if for the last 5 years, every single radio, television, movie, newspaper, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Chicago Tribune, blah, 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 MSNBC, CNN, all these, ABC, all the alphabet corporate media, all owned by big money Israelis, basically. Basically, they're Zionist, dual loyalty people, and it ain't to us, folks. But everything, Trump could have relentlessly anti-Trump, pushing Russiagate, pushing everything from his taxes to whatever, every single negative story from Don Jr. to what have you, to the piss story, the piss dossier, to all that stuff, and place it on us for 5 years. And he could have cured cancer, and they would have said, look at all the medical personnel he put out of business.
Yes.
So then, they got on him for the wall, which needed to be done, and just pilloried him for the wall. Well, not a lot of the wall's built. Nobody mentions that at all in the press. But then we have also the fact that the same people who fund the Democratic Party, I'm talking about George Soros, who also is a CIA asset, also funds Antifa and Black Lives Matter. These thugs that beat up, stab, shoot, murder, burn, loot. And if you have in LA, in California, if you have a Trump sign on your lawn or on your car, or if you wear a MAGA hat, you'll get beaten up with a MAGA hat. They will key or vandalize your car or your property. That doesn't
it's
happen
brown shirt tactics. It's brown shirt tactics.
Brown shirt, and it's been going on since the last election. So they've got strong-arm bully boys that do that, and then the last week we've got where they've done everything to push Pissgate, the whole ridiculous dossier, and all the stuff about Trump's taxes and what have you. Nobody covered Hunter Biden. Nobody covered it at all. I have an aunt that's sharp as hell who just called me, and she had no idea that anything happened with Hunter Biden. And I went, oh my Lord! But at any rate, they completely didn't do that. And then we have the President of the United States desperately trying to get on Twitter as the President of the United States the week of an election, and they banned him from Twitter.
Yes.
Facebook, Google, all these things. And think about the hundreds of millions of dollars it would have cost to get all the bad press that they gave to Trump and all the positive and look away press that they gave to Biden. And hundreds of millions, if not a billion. And then the cooperation of the secret police, the everything. And I want you, without, and the gerrymandering of the states through illegal immigration, the election laws where you can't even ask for ID. And then now our country is really, he has no chance. But it's been completely taken away from him.
It doesn't.
And when you put it all together, what would this have been like with a fair media and with fair social media, without the Jewish media and social media, without the press and all that stuff, without the secret police, without Soros and his bully boys, without the gerrymandering that's gone on for 2 generations of our borders and everything else. And by the way, I know I've told you this before. I was a military guy. Clauswood says war is a continuation of politics by other means. That was Clauswood's definition of war.
Yes.
The Democrats under Clinton, I remember him saying politics is a continuation of war by other means. And the Democrats have thought that with their Marxist, Trotskyite background since the 90s. But the Republicans don't have that. They don't have that mindset. They don't have, no matter what it takes, we're going to get you. And they're not ruled by a bunch of Marxist Zionists that control the banks and everything else. But that's where we are. He doesn't have a prayer. He doesn't have a prayer. And from Pelosi's everybody calling the election, even Fox News called Arizona way before it ought to have been. Against Trump. It's completely stacked, and it's time for us to look squarely in the eye where this is coming from. So that's my rant for the day. And
okay, it's a good rant.
Every single bit of that is valid. Anyways, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that, Mike, and good luck to everybody else. God bless everybody. We're gonna need it.
Yeah, we are. We absolutely are. Thank you for the call, Peter. And I think, vote fraud, election rigging has been part of American history. It's certainly nothing new here. But on a scale like this, I think with this election, the United States can no longer, with a straight face, call itself a democracy. We are a banana republic now with phony elections. And the elites hanging onto power by any means necessary. And while I'm convinced they will continue to do so, the United States should not be pointing any fingers at any other nation to criticize them for the way they handle their elections and their democracy. That's kind of where we are right now. The republic appears to be dead. We're living in a dictatorship, and we need to wake up and realize that, because we've got all the characteristics of a dictatorship. And these elections are being held just to try and fool the American people into thinking they still have some degree of control over their own future. And it's very obvious with this election that we do not. All right, we're going to take another phone call. Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind, as if I couldn't guess?
Aloha, Michael. You know, I think in the end, I may be kind of an optimist, but I think some way, somehow, Trump is going to prevail, because when they start uncovering this stuff, they're going to find all these irregularities. They're going to probably find a lot of his votes as well that should have been counted. And you know, I would immediately, and I'm sure he is, you know, get on to anybody I could. Like, I would be looking into, if it were me, I would be looking into Arizona.
Yes.
I would look and see even if perhaps the McCain connection there, what they might have had to do with it, because you could bet that they were in on this some way, somehow in Arizona. But it was just, if you followed the election, you know, he was up in Arizona and doing pretty well, it looked like to me. And I agree with Joe from
it
California.
did, you know, but I mean, there was so much suspicious behavior. I mean, if you look at the vote tracking in some of these borderline states, there's this vertical spike of Democratic votes just at the last second to swing the state over to Biden. Now, Rudy Giuliani is on the air right now talking about the legal options that the Trump campaign is exploring. They're already talking about going all the way to the Supreme Court to have suspicious votes thrown out. They're going to challenge this idea that votes without postmarks, you know, could be counted. You know, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be 2000 all over again, and it's going to get really, really ugly.
Right. I agree with, was it Joe out there in California? He should have come out and declared victory in those states so they couldn't change them, or at least had some apprehension about changing them. You know, but also another thing is with Pelosi talking like this, these Republicans now more than ever, they need to find their gonads and get out here and get hard. They need to get hard. They need to call for her to be censored, you know, considering the climate of everything that's just gone on.
Yes.
They need to be, they need to take that into account, and they need to challenge everything now, just like the Democrats tied up everything. Right now, they need to go back in the session when they go back, and they just need to be a terror in that Senate and Congress. And they need to look into, you know, this stuff thoroughly from beginning to end. Like, you look at some of these states, and their governors were all Republican. A good majority of their Senate and Congress are Republican, but somehow they just all happen to vote for Biden. This election, I mean, I don't see that. You know, they need to really, and you know, what is this FBI? Is this FBI going to do anything, or what do they do? Are they just like prom queens around here?
No, the FBI is one of the organizations that has resented Trump as being an outsider. I mean, this is what this is really all about. Donald Trump is not part of the club. He's not part of the deep state. He upset their plans in 2016 because Hillary was supposed to become the president. And, you know, he upset them and showed that the American people still had a little bit of voice in the running of this country. And they absolutely could not let that stand. And so this whole vote rigging wide out in the open is sending a message to those paying attention, you know, not to bother anymore, because, you know, we're going to choose the president for you. We're going to choose your congressman for you. We're going to choose your senators for you and your governors for you, even your dog catcher for you. And you might as well just accept that. Well, I'm one of those people who don't accept that.
Yeah. Nor do I, Michael. But here's the thing. We got all these voter laws and all these civil rights laws. People are being intimidated at the polls, electioneering at the polls. And see, this is why this stuff continues to go on, because nobody's ever punished but the little guy. You know, we got people that for, you know, doing simple crimes are in jail. They get the book thrown at them. But Hillary Clinton still hasn't faced a charge. None of these Democrats face any charges. None of these high officials, they don't even get a ticket, fine, fee, nothing. And that's the problem, because that inspires these people to just pin their ears back and go on to the next biggest thing, because they feel that they're invincible, and
Yeah.
that's what they're looking at to the public.
Well, that's what they're trying to prove with this election, is that they're invincible, and the will of the American people can go pound sand.
Exactly. Well, Michael, thank you so much, and have a great show today. I'm going to be listening to it very intensely, so thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be an intense show here. We're going to switch over to William in Florida. Hello, William. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Michael, welcome to the 2020 Bolshevik Revolution.
Yes.
I just can't believe this is what my grandparents escaped from in 1917 to come here. But the irony is, I want to take my family, my grandkids, move back to Russia. To be quite honest with you, it seems I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning watching Trump. He won like about 240 or so, and he looked eaten, withdrawn. Not the same old Trump who could say you the best kind of dirty joke in the whole world, just to make you smile. It was just something off about his appearance, and not claiming victory. I don't understand it, Mike. I really don't understand it. He's a very intelligent man.
Trump and his campaign probably have access to more accurate information than ordinary people do. And Trump was probably already realizing that Biden had succeeded in stealing this election away from him. Right now, Biden's at 264 electoral votes. So he's just 6 away from basically, declaring victory. Minus whatever court challenges. And, the corporate media is going to declare Biden the president, putting the burden of reversing that decision on Donald Trump, which was the mistake, of course, that Al Gore made back in 2000.
I remember that election very well, 2000, the Chads and the pregnant Chads, and it's not going to be that way. Everything is done by machine today, which I've always thought in itself is important for the simple fact that manipulated people can have the votes changed in a matter of a second. There have been reported cases. There used to be a very good video on YouTube about how fraud in the electoral in the voting system in America, how the
hacking democracy.
Yeah, exactly. And I've thought, maybe years ago, America would go to a little on the left, but not like this. Never in my entire lifetime. It's getting to a point where people are worrying about the Second Amendment. Well, unfortunately for me, I lost all my weapons in a tragic boat accident not too long ago.
Okay.
I won't have to worry about that, but still, the laws that are coming down now have been unconstitutional, a lot of them. Trump has closed a blind eye to a lot of these.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, William, I got to let you go here. We got to take a break.
I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. And we got more callers waiting on the line as soon as we come back. And welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones here to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Oh, yes, hello, Michael. Good to hear your callers, your regular callers. Michael, this notion that the Constitution Party is just a recent trick or something to try to undermine President Trump's chances of re-election. I think that's false, Michael. I'll tell you why. The Constitution Party goes all the way back to Howard Phillips. It started out as the U.S. Taxpayers Party, and so it goes. And Howard Phillips was a good, solid man. He was of Russian Jewish background, his parents and everything, but he was a good, loyal American, so he was a really solid dude. He was a really good man, and then a few years ago, I think against Obama, Pastor Chuck Baldwin headed up the Constitution Party ticket. So, I tried patiently last week or something. I tried patiently to explain the idea of about ballot access, Michael. They bemoan, they're only in 35 states. Well, see, if I wrote in, and I voted more for the Constitution Party than for Blankenship and William Moore. But we have a victory if we get 1% of the popular vote.
Mhm.
Then we gain ballot access in the next election, and that's what we're trying to achieve. And but also, Michael, I'm a believer. You know, I believe the gospel. I really do believe that. I'm not going to appear before the judgment seat of Judge Judy. I'm going to appear before the judgment seat of Jesus, and I don't want all that innocent blood on my hands that the Republican Party has shed. Which and that kind of brings me.
Well, that's hardly confined to just the Republican Party. I mean, the Democrats, look at Lyndon Johnson and all the blood that he shed, and he was a Democrat.
Yeah. So what's your point, Michael?
My point is, not to just say that it's just the Republicans Party that's shedding blood. The Democrats do it just as well. And getting on back to being a spoiler for the election, if you look at some of the states that Biden has won, like Michigan and Wisconsin, he is ahead by razor thin margins. We're talking just a few thousand votes here. And if people in those states were voting for the Constitution Party instead of Donald Trump, they may have had a significant impact on the outcome in those states, setting aside the issue of election fraud.
Well, Mike, listen, that reminds me of another point. Lately you've been saying, well, we don't talk about the Democrats and everything. Well, me and probably Paul from New Jersey and Chance from West Virginia.
Okay, David, I got to put you on hold. We got to take a station identification break. I'm going to come right back to you after these few words. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines at the moment are full, but as callers drop off, the lines will free up, and you can reach them at area code 512-248-8252. We're going to go back to David in Boston, and your comment on my comment that we weren't really talking about Democratic corruption all that much, like, Hunter Biden's laptop, Joe Biden's apparent deals with China, Russia, Ukraine, Romania, etc. ad infinitum.
Yeah, Mike. I don't play this game. My purpose isn't to expose the demon rats. I know, Michael, that the patriot community is not fooled at all by the Democratic Party. So why should I waste my time? What I'm concerned about is how they're fooled by the Republicans. I'm not going to waste my time going through all the evils of the demon rat party. I know the patriot community is onto them. But listen, here, let me respond to Miles. He more than once, I'd overlook it if he just did it once, but I think he's done it at least 2 and maybe even 3 times, that he's insisting that I join the Republican Party and try to change the Republican Party from within. So I want to take Miles, and I don't know if he's Miles from Maine or Miles from reality, but I want to take Miles up on his challenge, okay? Miles, I will obey you, and I will join the Republican Party and try to change the Republican Party from within, under one condition. If you will join the Hells Angels and become a bona fide member in good standing of the Hells Angels, and you try to change the Hells Angels from within, and you transform the Hells Angels into the Holy Hells Angels, that's when I'll join the Republican Party and try to change it from within. And that's all I've got to say, Michael. It's just absolutely sickening. This is a complete...
All right. Well, listen, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. And interestingly enough, many years ago, I actually did a little bit of acting and stunt work on a film called Losing It. And they hired some Hells Angels as extras, and I got to hang out with them. And contrary to the public image of them, they came across as very straight, real people. And, I just want to speak out, remember, everything you think you know about the Hells Angels has been fed to you by the same media that was lying to you about Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So just sort of keep that in mind. Media lies are not confined just to the presidency and vaccines and so forth and so on. All right, we're going to switch over now to Charles in New York. Hello, Charles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How you doing? I like the show, and I've been listening to a few of your callers before me, and they seem to have a lot of knowledge of what's going on and how we're being treated as Americans and all these secret societies and how the politicians don't represent the people. Well, I suggest two things. I suggest they get back to their roots. They read the book by Thomas Paine called Common Sense.
Yes, it's a very good book.
Sense. Very good book. Get back to your roots, read that book. And then the word mega. That's not Trump's saying. That's not Trump's cliche. Ronald Reagan used it, and I believe there was another president before Reagan used it. But it's always been Israel first. Because everything we have done, every war since, I'm an iron worker. I'm a New York City iron worker.
That takes a lot of guts.
Down at ground zero. Huh?
Mm-hmm. I said that takes a lot of guts to be an iron worker.
Right. I'm also a former U.S. Marine, and I come from a naval family. And I'm also a Vietnam veteran. And I'm speaking out of experience, not out of just book knowledge. So it's book knowledge and experience. As an American and as a real patriot that was born in the first Naval Hospital in Portsmouth, Virginia, when my father was off in Korea fighting communism back then and Bolshevism back then, as Americans, we have to get back to our roots that put this country together. We had one civil war. Unfortunately, we didn't have the money to win that war. And I'm talking about the South.
Yes.
South has to break off from this North. The banks, Wall Street, they won. They won the election. They do not represent us. They don't care about us. These politicians purposely, they put themselves in sexual perversity. They compromise themselves. They don't need a Jeffrey Epstein to film them secretly on his Leola Island. Okay, they purposely, to get into this club of control, okay, they purposely put themselves in these despicable positions so they can be, well, you got to use the negative word, right? Black male, black ball, black this, black that, because, right, anything that's bad got to be black, right? So I don't sound like a racist, right? But there's no way in the world that those buildings came down the way they said they came down. Because when
we know that, certainly.
But dust. All right, so we all know that. So the bottom line is that there has to be, the only thing that these people understand, because when they went into Russia and they killed millions and millions of Christians, just laid them out and killed them and robbed and pillaged the churches. If you mention God in China, they'll throw you in a hole. Not a jail, in a hole that you'll never see daylight again, okay? These same people seek to bring that type of system inside our country. The only thing they understand is armed resistance. Now, I hate to use this as an analogy, but Iran, they're not Arabs. They're Aryans. They're not Hitler's type of supreme Aryan, but they're an Aryan people. That's why you'll even hear the Israelis say they're a very bright people.
Yeah.
They knew that they were being exploited. They knew, the people. They knew. Where did they turn? They couldn't turn to the Shah because he was a puppet. He was on a peacock throne, a priceless throne. Where did they turn? They went to their clergy. Our clergy, back in the Civil War, used to counsel us. Matter of fact, the clergy were the ones that were out pushing common sense on the people to read. The clergy were the educated class. We lost our clergy. We lost our churches. We lost everything. These people have have infiltrated every great institution in this country that was set up. Okay? And they all sold out. There's only one thing and one thing only they will understand, and that is armed resistance. Sorry to say it. The other guy said you don't want to go in front of the throne. Well, he should read the soldier's prayer. No? If he knows the soldier's prayer, he knows that Christ's been through his hell down here. Okay? If he was a real honest soldier fighting for the truth, speaking the truth to power, corrupted power, not power that represents us, because I wouldn't pay a friggin' tax to these people. You know why? Because I'm not being represented by these people. These people represent Walmart, the Astors. We all know all this. So what's all this crying about? And Trump, he's compromised too. And I'm not a Trump fan, and I'm not a Biden fan, and I'm not nobody's fan. I'm an American patriot that doesn't like what my country turned into. And they're taking my Constitution and they're shredding it and throwing it down the drain. And until the American people get fired up, because we know what's going on. We had the internet for a while. We know that people have been deplatformed. They had to go over the BitChute and transfer everything over. You have people that are doing a lot of work to enlighten. We know what's going on. This, like Dr. David Duke said, they don't introduce him as an historian, as a doctor, with all his degrees. They still, to this day, he's a Ku Klux Klan. What he said was there was a lot of good that came out of this election. You know what? Because all it did was wake us up even more. But the whole thing is we got to be cool. We can't blow it up. We can't do it in a way where we get upset and confusion starts. We have to do it in an organized way. The way these people planned and did it, we got to come back at them like that. We got to catch them with their pants down. Because blowing up a building doesn't mean you stop the system. So the system is corrupted at the core. It's the system. It's got to be totally torn down and rebuilt. When they pulled off that second false flag, like they did at Pearl Harbor, and they did it in New York City, after that wore off, they had to create something else. What did they come up with? They came up with this crap 19. Since when do we believe China? Since when do we believe that China identified this COVID, whatever the hell it is, 19? They don't even know what they're looking for, because all it is a freaking flu that would have killed the same amount of people. Or maybe it's a little amped up because Fauci did move what he had in the stateside over to China, and he has a $50 billion war chest and monopoly, and Bill Gates. See, so I'm just doing what the other guys are doing. We all know this. Mm-hmm. So we have to, the only thing that I believe what we have to do is we have to form an armed resistance. And we have that right. And the reason why they won't win here, the reason why they overstep and they went this far and they're doing this and they're pushing it this far, this hard, is because they know, because they're very scared, because we are really waking up. And they know that we're the only country, the only nation left in the world that still has guns.
Yes.
And they know that. And they're scared to death of that. And once you
that Biden and Harris, they're going to, go after those assault weapons.
That's when it's going to start.
Yeah, that's where it's going to start here. Yep.
Going to start. That's what I try to tell you. Let Trump, okay, go through the court system. It's going to, like you said, it's going to be a repeat of the 2000s. Let him go do what he has to do. And when they start coming for me, then they come for my family, then it's set off. Because my brother already moved to South Carolina. He's a retired electrician from the police department in New York City. I get to retire next month as an iron worker. Okay, a lot of retired firemen, a lot of retired police officers, a lot of retired correctional officers, a lot of retired sanitation men from New York City. We're all going to South Carolina. Why are we going to South Carolina? Because you can buy guns in South Carolina and the government, there's none of the government's business. You own the gun, it's your gun. You don't have to register it. Okay?
Yeah,
and
it's the same way here in Indiana.
And knocks on you. Yeah, the sheriff knocks on your door and says, welcome to town, or blah, blah, blah. We're not going to have any of this if, they decide to come down here and, burn our town down. Will you mind if I deputize you under the Constitution of the United States? No problem, Sheriff. No problem. So if that's what they want, there's sheriffs that already let them know that.
Yep.
Already in the air. It's already in the water. It's just going to take one little spark to set it off. So let the American people read common sense. Read Thomas Paine. Read what he had to say. Okay?
Yes.
And everything we did in the last 19 years, all the wealth and treasure of America was not for the American people. It was for that little country that is in the Middle East that is nothing but a military footprint like the other beast, the Saudi family, which Trump used as a milking cow, the Saudi mafia. They were put in power by the British Empire. Both countries were created by the British Empire.
Yes.
Okay, so we all know the history. We're not stupid. But the only way we're going to take our country back, I'm afraid, is through armed resistance. Thank you, Micah, for your time. Have a good day. And I hope the people listen to what I had to say.
Well, thank you very much. And I certainly agree that everybody should read Thomas Paine's Common Sense. I'm opposed to the idea of an armed rebellion or revolution in the streets of America, but it feels like one is coming and there's nothing I can do to stop it. I certainly would not interfere with it or get in its way should it happen, but I really don't like the idea. Okay, we're going to switch over now to Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today? Dustin, are you there?
This is Steve, Mike.
There you are.
Oh, hang, my lines are messed up. Hang on one second.
All right.
Tell Steve to hang on. There's Dustin.
Okay. All right, Steve, hang on, and here's Dustin. Dustin, are you there? Dustin,
Actually,
I think it's on.
We lost him.
We lost Dustin. All right, let's go to Steve in West Virginia. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, hi, first of all. I just want to tell you that the first caller you had that said he wanted to move to Russia and he watched the whole thing last night, honestly, I've been thinking about that for the last year. I mean, I really like Putin, and Russia at this point almost looks like a better alternative.
Certainly, since the Soviet Union fell, things are a lot better there. And I'll be very honest. If Claire and I were younger, we would be seriously looking at moving to another country. But at our age, I don't know that anybody's going to take us.
Yeah, and that's the problem for me is that I have so much stuff I'd have to get rid of everything I like and that I've accumulated for my whole life. And just get rid of it, and that's the hard thing. And then the other thing for me about Russia would be I really like super cold weather, but I'm seriously, I've thought about it. I want to get out of this country. It's terrible. And the other point I'd like to make is, I don't know what Donald Trump could have done, but it's like a football team, a good football team, an NFL team. I'm sure you know a little bit about football, Mike.
Yes, I do.
When you're up, there's a lot of teams. When you're up 3, touchdowns and there's 3 minutes left in the third quarter, you have got to put them away. You've got to step on the other team's throat and just pour it on, because
yes.
If you just lay around and don't do anything and become passive, the other team can come back. There's plenty of times when Donald Trump has won, and then he just reverts to passivity. All throughout his whole 4 years, he's never been on the offense. He's always been reactive, never proactive, and there's so many things he could have done. He should have gone after these people in the very, very beginning. I mean, if you could have dismantled them or just took them off their what they were doing, I mean, it would have helped so much, but he just let them go. And, you know, the Antifa thing, he could have really come down hard on them and got the American people behind him, and he didn't do any of it. So, I mean...
No. No, I mean, I'll be the first one to say Trump is a disappointment. I mean, I obviously supported him in 2016. Actually, it was more a case of opposing Hillary. And same thing in this election. I was opposed to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But Trump has been a disappointment, and I think his weakness as a leader is one of the reasons why, you know, he's in trouble right now.
I got one more thing for you.
Okay. Okay, you're breaking up, Steve. Can you put the phone closer to your mouth?
Can you hear me now better?
A little better, but we got a really bad connection. What's on your mind? You got about 45 seconds.
Okay. Who do you think is really behind Donald Trump?
Well, I imagine a large coalition of financial interests, the nation of Israel, although they seem to want Biden in the White House more than they want Trump, even after all that Trump did for them. There's gratitude for you. I don't think there's a single source behind any politician. They basically create a coalition of wealthy and influential and powerful interests who all think that their wealth and power are going to grow if they get their person into office.
I'll let you go.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. It's just in time for another commercial break. We got more callers waiting on the line, and I think some of the lines are open if you want to call on in. 512-248-8252. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go back to the phones to Glenn in Philadelphia. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Mike. I heard you talking about the Raspberry Pi 4 computer.
Oh, good. Something besides politics.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you'd appreciate that.
I do.
$70 is a great price for a powerful Unix computer. However, the first thing that popped into my mind is the chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and you're taking a robust and reliable solid-state device and encapsulating it in the case of a keyboard, which is very vulnerable to wear and tear. And keyboards ain't what they used to be. I have fond memories of the first generation IBM PC, PCXT, chiclet keyboards. Those things were wonderful.
Yes.
But that's not the way keyboards are these days. And so, you know, I would, you know, much rather see the Raspberry Pi 4 have a socket for an external keyboard, because the keyboard's the first thing that's going to go bad.
Well, they do sell the Raspberry Pi 4, you know, as just the card, and you can get a case for it, and you can plug a keyboard and a mouse and HDMI and all kinds of things into it. I had a couple of Raspberries back on Oahu. They got lost, as so much else did, in the move to Indiana. But I really enjoyed those. It sort of brought back the memories of how much fun computers were in the early days. Now, as far as keyboards, I know a lot of keyboards today are value engineered. And if you're a heavy user like I am, I recommend getting a gamer's keyboard, because those are built to take a lot of abuse. And I've got a Razer keyboard here that has just lasted forever. And I do pound on it quite a bit, because I learned how to type on a manual Smith Corona portable. And I also played piano when I was younger, so I have a very, very heavy touch.
It would almost be nice if they had, like, the Raspberry Pi 4, kind of like the way Apple does the Mac. You know, it's just a little box with a power plug and you know, a data port. You know, if they would put you know, 4 or 5 USB ports on, you know, for plugging devices in, and have it just encapsulated in a little box. That might be a little.
Well, that's exactly what the Raspberry Pi 4 is, and I think.
I thought you said it was in. Oh, I thought you said it was in the keyboard.
Well, that's one way you can buy it. That's one way that you can buy it. And at that price point of $70, I mean, you know, if it breaks down, you just, you know, toss it and buy another one. I mean, you know, unlike our big desktop machines that cost thousands of dollars, and especially out here in Indiana, it's impossible to get parts to repair it.
Right. Do you remember the original chiclet keyboards?
I never liked the touch on those. I prefer an actual, mechanical action keyboard.
Well, that's what the original one. It was a beautiful keyboard, metal keys with a very nice throw and a tactile feedback click. It was just wonderful. I remember typing papers in college on those. And
I remember the original PC keyboard, but it wasn't really. The chiclet designs were the one with the, just the touch pads and no throw to the key at all. But yes, those first IBM keyboards were very good. They had to be because IBM was trying to build its reputation compared to, Apple. And so they built those things very, very robust. But these days, if you're a power user, if you're a heavy user, get a gamer's keyboard because they will hold up and they will last.
Gotcha. One other point, Mike, and this is back to something a little less pleasant, and I'll be quick. I have noticed this for a few weeks. The emotional climate being what it is, everybody's cranked up, and the callers are cranked up, and the callers are having a tendency to prattle on with all their philosophical musings of the past 10 years, and they're sermonizing and pontificating, and I sometimes wish people would just have a point or two and make a point or two and then get going. But people are sermonizing. Actually, times when I'm tending to tune away because people are prattling on and on. So I just thought
I've actually gotten quite a few emails complaining about that to try and keep the calls shorter so that more people can get on. And we're going to start enforcing that here, probably once all of this election insanity is over. We're going to be making some changes to the program so that people get on with one idea, they explain it, and then they make way for somebody else, because I'm sure a lot of people are trying to call the show, but they can't right now because we have a limited number of phone lines, and right now they're all full.
Right. In which case, I'll get out of the way. But even as a listener who's not calling, it's just on and on and on. Gotcha. Thank you, Mike. Take care. God have mercy.
All right. All right, thank you very much here, and we're going to let you go, and I'm not going to start a new phone call again because we are so close to a commercial break here. And apparently over in Russia, they are getting ready to start competing with SpaceX with their own line of reusable rockets that will launch into space and then return to Earth. And so Elon Musk now has a little bit of competition, which I think is a good thing. I think competition is healthy. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with more phone calls after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phone lines, a tweet from Donald J. Trump. We have claimed for electoral vote purposes the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which won't allow legal observers, the state of Georgia, and the state of North Carolina, each one of which has a big Trump lead. Additionally, we hereby claim the state of Michigan if, in fact, there was a huge number of secretly dumped ballots, as has been widely reported. So this is going to be really intense before it's over. All righty, so we're going to go back to the phones here. Layla in Canada, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to report that the desire for my death is very premature. I refer to your second hour yesterday at 39 minutes and 50 seconds. A man calling himself Nathan from North California listed the names of 6 people and a number of others, he said. And I quote, his words were, "The nicest thing they can all do is check into a hospital and quietly die."
Yeah, I remember that one. I was not happy with that at all.
He went on to say, just go away, get off the planet, and get out of the galaxy. Then he went on to talk about Dave and say that he should be checked into an institution and stay there until the sun freezes. And Mike, all you did was laugh.
Well,
I think that the no, please let me finish. If someone wishes my death on your show, and it's not just me, it's 6 other names. He started with Layla, Mark, David, Paul, Dustin, Jim, and a number of others. And he says he refuses to listen, absolutely refuses to listen. And yet he evidently not only listened, but he took notes. or his Netanyahu, which is probably Nathan's real name, Netanyahu Nathan, who is the enemy in your midst. Because if he had his way, there's no need for an election. If everybody just dies, gets off the planet, and gets out of the galaxy, there's no different opinions. All we have to do is listen to Netanyahu Nathan's opinion and follow it, bow down and say, yes, master, we will obey you. That's exactly what you were entertaining, Mike. And then you laughed and said that you felt insulted because he said that someone had claimed that we said we could all run the country better than Trump. And you laughed, you said you were insulted. You didn't say you did not appreciate the insult to your callers. That
well, you're Layla, you're right.
Mike. Yeah, okay. All right.
I probably should have chastised him. The reason I laughed is because he was, just so over the top there, and I felt like ridicule was probably the best approach.
That wasn't ridicule, Mike. What you said is, now I feel insulted. You never said, do not insult my other guests. When they come onto my show on my turf, they should feel safe from this kind of verbal assault. And one final comment. Yes. There are two comments that I would like to make. There was a story that was supposedly leaked from the Liberal Party of Canada on the RBN website. Is that legitimate, or was it a hoax?
Which story was that?
Drastic. I saw it at 4 o'clock in the morning. It claimed that there was going to be massive debt relief, that the International Monetary Fund was going to institute debt relief to everybody, force them into internment camps where they would also be forced to be vaccinated, and their debts would be forgiven in exchange for giving up their assets and being inoculated with this vaccine. Is that
okay?
A legitimate story, or is it a hoax?
I know the story that you're talking about. It was posted in the forum, and anybody can post anything in the forum. It just, including a lot of nonsense to try and make RBN look bad. And unfortunately, you fell for it. And perhaps the forum should actually, apparently it was from an outside forum and was cross-posted. But again, this is the internet. It's kind of the Wild West, and a lot of people say a lot of crazy things. And generally, my attitude is we ignore the craziness.
I understand the internet. Yeah, but whoever is the webmaster should have put in some kind of safeguards against that sort of thing. However, it sounded like there was a degree of credibility to what it was proposing, which is why I sent it to someone and said, please review this. Does this seem logical? So, it compromises the credibility of RBN itself. And that is the thing. But I would like your response. Do you think that it's a good idea that everybody should all fall in line with Nathan's desires, and everybody who doesn't should simply drop dead? No. And I wish you had said something along those lines. I expected
I'll
better
keep that
from
in
you.
mind the next time that happens. You've made your point.
Well, the next time, this has happened before, Mike, this kind of thing. And, I know you're burdened with a lot, because you get a lot of callers who are very vehement. But I want to speak up for Dave from Boston, who he singled out as being checked into an institution and stay there until the sun freezes. Well, if the sun freezes, Nathan, everybody on this planet dies. And secondly, Dave is a sincere and passionate man. And all of those who were critical of Trump were saying that the parties, the two major parties, are controlled by the same satanic Zionist global interests. They've always done that throughout history. They support both sides of a war. And that is how they create chaos. And one thing you've got to do, any country has got to do, is forbid 2 passports, dual citizenships. I could have had U.S. citizenship, but I did not think it was the ethical thing to do. I wasn't prepared to give up my Canadian citizenship.
You mentioned that before.
And I thought you cannot be loyal to 2 masters. And that is where the U.S. I'm sorry, that is where the U.S. has invited its downfall. And the final thing, be very wary. Israel uses electronic blasts and sound blasts to disarm anybody who revolts against them. Simple handguns or even assault rifles will not work. So good luck, and take care, everybody. It may be too late to defend yourselves and protect your country. Goodbye.
All right, goodbye, Leila, and I understand you're upset, and I will keep it in mind the next time somebody tries to go to town on you. But again, in the spirit of the First Amendment, I tend to give the callers a little bit of leeway, and perhaps I should have dealt with Nathan a little bit differently. But thank you for the phone call, and we are going to go to, let's see, I got to scroll back up here. Randy in Ontario. Hello, Randy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. How are you doing today?
Doing fine.
Okay, good. Something was brought to my attention in the middle of this afternoon. It's an executive order on imposing certain sanctions in the event of a foreign interference in the U.S. United States elections. Foreign policy was issued September the 12th, 2018. Executive order on imposing certain sanctions in the event of a foreign interference in a U.S. elections, and it's foreign policy issued on September 12th, 2018. Unbelievable. Yeah, they know
I mean, this election, they're already out there saying Russia's interfering, Iran is interfering, Monaco is interfering, Australia's interfering. I mean, they're just pointing fingers all over the place.
Anyway, I think people should relax. It should be okay.
All right. So anything else, Randy?
No, that's everything, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go and switch over to Phil in Florida. Hello, Phil. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for the show. I want to go back to the 9/11 and the fellow that was calling from New York made me think of a few things. I've been saying for years, until this country honestly deals with 9/11. Now, mind you, I've been saying this for 15 plus years. We're going to continue to get what we get and then some, as far as the tyranny we're under. And, I too am from New York. I left in 82, 83, but I was there 22 years, grew up there, and there long enough to observe that many New Yorkers look at themselves as, we're the toughest, we're the best, don't mess with us, that kind of attitude, and 9/11, Mike, it got taken right to their house, right in their house, New York.
Yes.
And they didn't deal with it. Instead, they waved the flag and went over and bombed a bunch of poor innocent brown people,
Yes.
And my experience with 9/11 Truth, I was anti-war activist, and 9/11 Truth, 9/11's the reason for the 9/11 wars, and our group had Dr. Bob Bowman within our group here in Florida. And
yes.
he came out right away, and he was chastised by the anti-war movement, instead of backed by the anti-war movement. And, I've had the most resistance, Mike, from my time with 9/11 Truth over the last 15 years plus, from the firefighters, from the cops, from the tough guy construction workers, and New Yorkers. My God, whenever family and friends, the most resistance, the most vile rejection I've gotten with 9/11 Truth is from that New Yorkers and that that first responder crowd throughout America here in Florida. And I think, Mike, I'm not a psychologist or whatever, but I think at some level, some level of unconsciousness or consciousness. They know they didn't stand up to 9/11. They know it, and rather than admit that, I'm making a broad brush here, but
yeah,
the tough New Yorkers don't mess with us.
yeah,
They took it. They didn't stand up, and when anyone would suggest that 9/11, like the iron workers said, those buildings blew up, they didn't come down the way the government said. Anyone
yes,
ever suggest that to the cops, the firefighters, how dare you? I was there, were you
yeah,
there? Well, look what we got. We got 20 years later. This is what we got. We got people wanting to leave the country, and this ain't. We got no freedom. We got terror. We got no representation. We're still taking our shoes off at the airport. Nobody even spoke up against that. And now look with these face masks and the lockdowns, and everybody's doing their 6 feet apart, and it's the same thing, Mike. We're tough Americans, Hey, don't mess with us. We're tough Americans. No, we're not.
yep,
No, we're not. And I refuse to wear one of these stupid face masks. And, and I've been refusing for the past 7, 8 months, whatever it's been. And I don't have to be a tough guy about it. I just refuse to wear one. And, when I'm at the airport for the past 18 years or whatever it's been, when we have to take off the shoes and the belts and all that, I say stuff. I say stuff in line. This is bullshit. 9/11 was an inside job. And here we're taking off our shoes, and this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. I think not. These are the things I say in line. And I don't have to scream it, but I say it loud enough to be heard. And we can individually do our part, and maybe it'll give someone else the guts to say something themselves. But the reality, Mike, and it's just the proof's in the pudding. New
yep,
York, the tough New Yorkers, right in their own house, and they don't want to hear it, but they didn't fight back. They didn't stand up. It was right in their own house, and here we are, millions and millions of people killed, innocent people, trillions and trillions of dollars, and we got this tyranny we're living under now because we didn't deal with 9/11.
you're absolutely right. We got conned just like people who got conned by the Pearl Harbor deception, and it's how government controls fraud and illusion.
I don't even give them that much. I think that's too kind. They know. Those buildings, you don't blow up a building, have it come down, perfect symmetry and dust. These firefighters knew. These cops knew. These guys that work construction on the high rises, they know. You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be, well, I'm not an engineer, I'm not, but bullshit. Excuse me, but
yes,
they know. Anyway, a 5th grader knows, and they didn't stand up. They just waved the flag and say, "Let's go bomb some brown people halfway around the world."
Well, actually, that was the government that did that, not the people.
Yes, but they cheered it on. I see every fire truck down here's got the American flag. Never forget, And when we do our 9/11 thing every year, we do our 9/11 thing here in Daytona Beach, and we get flipped the bird by the firefighters. The cops try to hassle us. You got a right to, I don't agree with you, but I'll fight to the death for you to express your bullshit.
Please watch your language on this radio.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, we'll have
thank you for the show. I better let the other callers get in. Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. Yeah, we do need to watch the language out there, people, because I'm sure the FCC is looking for a reason to harass Republic Broadcasting. We already know that Biden has said he wants to shut down independent media completely, which is us, is yours truly. Maybe I'll go get a job over at Holiday World making balloon animals or something when this is all over. All right, we're coming up here on another commercial break. More phone calls waiting on the other side, and we will be right back. And welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today here. We're going to go back to the phones to Dan in Washington State. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for taking the call. I called about the election. The last caller got me. The 9/11, it is a huge way to wake people up. Anyone with common sense knows that's a big lie. And that's why I don't really agree with people saying it's time to take up arms and violence, is because I don't agree with half of these Trump supporters or Republicans or Democrats or these people that go along with these lies. So I'm not going to fight on the same side for them. And
well, I'm in agreement with you. You know, I'd like to find a peaceful way out of this mess. And again, I see the United States heading for a Soviet Union-style collapse, just poisoned to death by its own corruption, and that we really ought to be thinking about what kind of a country we want to construct after we go through that. But I think that's inevitable at this point, and the sooner the better, to be very honest.
yeah, well, another one is the Holocaust. I mean, you start looking into this Holocaust, and you're like, oh, 6 million, huh? Well, how could you get rid of that many bodies so quickly? And, oh, the Red Cross said it was 200,000 in 1980. And
well, look at all the look at all the huge lies we've been fed throughout our entire lives here. This is just another one of them, and that's how we're controlled with these lies, like torpedoes in the Gulf of Tonkin, a Spanish mine in Havana Harbor. The Lusitania wasn't carrying weapons when it was sunk by the Germans. Just all kinds of stuff. Pearl Harbor was a surprise. No, we know it was not. Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. No, we know they didn't have that. 9/11 itself, we're lied to all the time. We're the most lied to people on the face of planet Earth.
Yep. And back to the election real quick. I know I don't have much time. The strategy moving forward, if Trump does lose, and I was watching the results last night. I was looking at Michigan. I mean, he had a clear, I think it was like a almost like 10-point lead, and it was like 95% counted. And I wake up this morning and I'm like, how, you know, I could see Wisconsin was close, but Michigan wasn't even close. So,
yeah, I mean, well, Trump has filed a lawsuit now to basically say they have to allow observers in there and all the ballots have to be rechecked. So this is going into the court system. It's 2000 all over again. And as far as I'm concerned, after this election, we're no longer a democracy. Dan, I got to let you go. I'm going to try and fit one more call in here.
Thanks.
Ken in New York, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, after all of the politics, I was going to talk for a second about the raspberry.
Yeah,
how much time do we have?
We're almost out of time. I'm sorry. You may have to call back in.
All right, I'll call back.
The raspberries are nice machines.
Again. Good night.
All right. Good night,
I'll
then.
call back again.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. I appreciate that. Okay, we're at the end of the show. There's the music, so stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got a lot of comments about what's going on with our election system. It's been a nightmare. I have never been more disgusted with the United States government, deep state, whatever you want to call it, than I am right now. So please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting, spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.